I just read Final Space the final chapter, so here's my spoiler-free review to the book. So yeah, I've waited years to finally see the release of this book so I can see the conclusion to one of my favorite TV shows while I was in high school. And yep, I think that was a satisfying conclusion. Like, oh my gosh, that book was well worth the wait. Did it have its problems? Yeah, it had a couple problems, but did I enjoy it? Abso-freaking-lutely. When I'm reading this book, I can perfectly imagine everybody's voices from the original show, even during the moments of the book where you don't really hear a lot of dialogue between some of the characters, mainly during some of the recap moments for seasons 1 through 3. And speaking of which, I do like that there is a recap in the beginning of this book that gives you a little rundown of what happens during the events of the first 3 seasons of this show, in case it's been a good long while since you've seen the series. It kind of does drag on a little bit, but it is needed for the people who haven't either seen the show or haven't seen the show in a while. I personally had some problems when it came to turning the pages. I'm not sure if this is common for the comic book industry or anything, where you're turning a page and one page kind of gets stuck to it, so you're kind of accidentally skipping to a spoiler. That happened to me a good couple of times, but it wasn't anything too major where I couldn't get upset about being spoiled about something too early on. The music in this book is absolutely beautiful, and you're probably asking yourself, wait, how can a book have music? Well, that's something that's pretty interesting about this book. It does have music that you can listen to because there are QR codes scattered around the book where you can just scan it and it'll take you to a link where you can listen to a musical score that's for specific parts of the part of the book that you're reading to. I don't think I've ever seen that done in any type of book ever, and when it comes to writing the novel series that I'm trying to work on, I think I'm going to try to implement a style very similar to that to give people a lot more of an immersive feeling when it comes to getting into these stories. And yeah, it is very immersive. I really do feel like I'm watching an actual moment from the show with the musical score going on in the background. None of it really feels like I'm reading it at the same time though, either if it's like you're reading it a little bit slowly or if you're reading it faster than normal. There are just some moments within the book where the musical score doesn't match up to a certain moment. But that doesn't mean that there aren't moments where the musical score does match perfectly with some of the moments. There's this moment towards the ending of the book, I'm not gonna say why, but oh my gosh, when they get to these certain lyrics to the final song, it really gets me tearing up to see how we are reaching the end of the series and how we're gonna have to see this character make this noble sacrifice. But seriously though, I really was tearing up so bad for this comic. I haven't cried to a comic since, I don't know, like my reread of Assassination Classroom. I really enjoyed the time skip designs for a lot of these characters, and I also find it pretty clever that the 5-year time jump is a nod to how long it's been since the last time we've seen these characters. There's also a lot of interesting world building in this book too, mainly around the war between the Ventrexians and Trivulians. The beginning parts of this book feel a little bit slow to me, especially with that long recap, but I feel like it really does start to pick up a bit once when you finish the prologue to the book. Invictus manages to make their mark by being one of the scariest villains of animated shows in my opinion. Like every time we saw this character appear within this book, oh my gosh, they are just constantly aura farming, and I just found them to be one of the scariest parts of the entire series and this book. It was also really cool to finally see them utilizing their physical form and just causing all this mass destruction. It's both awesome and scary to witness. I do wish there were a couple of moments where we could see some of the villains trying to cooperate with each other and planning of what they're gonna do next through the next part of the story. We kind of see the villains show up towards like the halfway to the end part of the story. I would have liked to see a lot more of them during the beginning parts of the story. And another big issue I did have with this comic, and it's not really a problem with the story itself, it's just due to the pacing of comics themselves, where I feel like they can buy a little bit of extra time to really express the emotion of certain characters. I feel like all that's needed is like one or two extra little side panels where we can get a moment to visually show the expression this character is making, to show just how hard it is to make a certain decision of what they're going through at the moment. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to not showcase that kind of human emotion within a comic, because I also understand that there is a limited amount of space you can put within a comic book, but I do wish that there were a little bit more moments where they could just add a couple of extra panels to really give us some time to focus on these human expressions that these characters are making. But otherwise, I had an amazing time with this story. I found it to be a really great conclusion to these characters that I've grown to love over all these years, and I really do hope that there is a chance for Olin Rogers to get this story the adaptation that it deserves, so we can see these characters interacting just a little bit longer even after the end has come. Like, I would honestly say that I would want to see this on the big screen for a full 3-hour length movie. The art in this was so visually pleasing, and I need to see something like this show on the big screen. It would be so amazing to see. I give this book a 9.9 out of 10, giving it an A+. Anyway, that's the review. Go down to those comments, tell me if you're gonna try to get Final Space the final chapter. Share this video with all your friends. And hit that like and follow button to get all my latest content.